Okay. Ow. That's not good. Ow. Oh, that's even worse. He's gonna kill me. He's in our base. There's only one thing to do. That ought to flush him out. Now I can just sit and wait. Ah, hurt him already. Good. Uh-oh. No. Don't do it. Guys, seriously, don't go in there. Oh. What we have here is a serious failure to communicate. Hello people, R1 here. Today we're going to take a look at the last tank and, as is our tradition in this series, airplane combination in War Thunder Ground Forces at Battle Ranking 1.7 for the German side. We're going to take a look at the Panzer IIIe. And I kind of saved this one for last because although it's not radically better than the other offerings at this battle ranking, it, in my opinion, for me, has been the most fun. Now, it is very lightly armored. It falls into the medium tank category. It's 30 millimeters of armor all the way around hull and turret, except for the very rear of the hull, and that drops down to 20 millimeters. On the plus side, though, it is a quick tank, topping out at a theoretical 67 kilometers per hour. It's got good elevation and depression of its gun, going all the way down to negative 10 degrees, which is handy a lot of times. Although its upper tolerance there, it can only elevate its gun 20 degrees, which sometimes makes life a little difficult, but it manages to make do fairly well. Now, compared to the Panzer IV, it's got a smaller gun, but it's a higher velocity weapon than the big howitzer type short bore on the Panzer IV. Its armor-piercing ammunition can hit velocities in the mid 700 meters per second. Its APCR ammo can go up over 1,000 meters per second, and that means that it is more accurate at range. And it may not do as much damage per hit, but it does tend to have better penetration. Well, of course, especially with APCR ammunition. It makes the tank, for me, more fun to play. That allows me the flexibility to charge in close if I need to, but I can also stay at range and put shots in from a safe distance, or snipe artillery, or shoot with reasonable accuracy at aircraft overhead. It just opens up a lot of options that, to me, makes gameplay a lot more enjoyable. Now, don't get me wrong, you are going to find tanks that you will be up against that you're just not going to have much luck penetrating. As a matter of fact, when this tank was part of the main force that was engaging the French and the British expeditionary forces in the battle for France, the nickname that was given to this little tank with its little 37mm gun. I think they called it the door knocker when it tried to engage British Matildas or the French heavily armored B-1 tanks. It just couldn't penetrate them really at all, even at close range. But for the majority of what you're going to face, you'll do okay. And for those things that you can't penetrate or you can't close on without exposing yourself to return fire, well, that's what artillery's for. Now, later versions of this tank will solve that problem. Although space is much more cramped in the Panzer III than it is in the Panzer IV, eventually they will manage to squeeze in higher velocity and higher caliber guns that will be able to be a serious threat to other tanks of all sizes within reason. So it does fulfill, at this level, the anti-tank role, in my opinion, better than the Panzer IV does. The Panzer IV was originally designed to take out infantry as its main target, and the Panzer III was designed to take out targets that required a bit higher penetration. They just, from time to time, would run into things beyond even their capability to penetrate, and that's just the arms race that takes place in any war. You come up with a better offense, and the enemy comes up with a better defense, and it goes back and forth. Of course, like any tank, there are certain things that you're going to have to worry about, especially since you're very lightly armored out there. If you stay in one spot and snipe, airplanes can be a problem. Now, speaking of airplanes, I kind of like to team the Panzer III up with the Stuka Ju-87 B-2. It's the 1.7 battle ranking German aircraft that, well, in my opinion, it kind of goes well with the Panzer III. You're already in the mindset that you're not the most deadly thing out there on the battlefield, although you can do some damage, and sometimes you can surprise an opponent. But it's able to carry up to a 500 kilogram bomb, which can do serious damage to anything on the battlefield. So if you're careful in the air and don't get overwhelmed by enemy fighters, you can do some serious damage to ground targets. Just remember, if you dogfight with it against something small and agile like Solo here in this I-15, you're going to start burning off speed. I'm able to damage him repeatedly, but I'm able to take this little guy down. But I do drive him off, heavily damaged. And eventually Solo's going to crash before he gets back to the airfield. So, well, at least there's that. But that's going to free me up to go back into the battlefield and try and do some damage. And if you're in a tank on the battlefield and you hear that siren start to go off, you need to look to your laurels. It can pack a serious punch. 500 kilograms of explosive will mess up your day. Of course, the problem with the Stuka, well, there are two really. Number one, you don't want to engage higher ranking enemy fighters, and you have to keep going back to reload after every bomb drop. But still, with good timing, those problems are not insurmountable. Hi, Solo. Good to see you again. Well, that's enough general information about the vehicles in play. My last video was way too long, so I'm going to show you some excerpts from some particularly enjoyable matches. This one was pretty brutal. I'm going to start out, it's on Karelia and it's a conquest map. I'm going to start out by heading to the base as quickly as I can. Some of the rest of my team has the same idea, but they have beaten us to the punch. So we're going to have to root them out of here. Got to pull back or I'm going to get my head blown off. But the first thing I did was lay in some artillery on the base. I want to split them away from the base and split them up from each other. And let my my teammates wedge their way in and take them apart piecemeal if possible. To that effect, I need to do what this tank does best. I'm going to flank around up this slope and see if I can get into a nice flanking position and provide some covering fire for our bigger guns. Match has turned into a pretty brutal fight for that base. The last thing we need right now is an airstrike coming in on our heads. One bomber down. Now we have taken the base away from them at this point, but they're pressing us hard. So I put myself in a fairly aggressive mindset, which is always dangerous in this tank, and throw myself into the teeth of their counterattack. My fault, really. Pressed too hard. So, taken out by a T-28. I'll keep that in mind. We're going to jump in the Stuka, see what we can do. And it's pretty rough up here as well. That's an LA-5 heading directly for me, and he's not alone. That SU-2 is still over there as well. I have a feeling that this Stuka isn't going to last long in the air, unfortunately. But we're going to do as much damage as we can before we're taken out of the fight. I managed to get two T-28s with that bomb, so I guess I got some revenge. Nice to do some damage, but I'm not long for this world. And AA is going to take me out right before I end up plowing into that tree. I'm down to my last tank, so I need to make this count if I can. I'll head back to the battle. I consider flanking a different way, but this is really the most direct route to where I need to be. So I'm going to make best speed there. Well, that was my intention anyway. But there's that Su-2 that was in the air that I managed to put some rounds into from my Stuka. And I have a feeling he's seen me. Second bomber down. Now, back to my original plan. And although I did not survive this match, I feel like I made a pretty decent contribution to the effort, and we will win this one. Of course, killing bombers is one thing. Killing something small and nimble like this little Zukovsky's biplane is another. But it's doable. I think he's mad. On the other hand, when you have to deal with something too big for the Panzer III to take down, like say a KV-1, well, that's when the Stuka proves its worth. I don't know, it just seems like whenever I'm driving the Panzer III and flying the Stuka, I've come to expect the unexpected. Well, case in point, I'm not really talking about this engagement with the B-7. It pretty much goes as I predicted, and it's certainly not unexpected that he would call in artillery on our heads to try and win via suicide kill. But then things like this happen. Did not expect to take out that T-34 with a ram, let alone survive. To illustrate that point, I think I'm going to wrap things up with this particular battle on jungle. It's a conquest battle. I'm not going to include it because I do phenomenally well in this particular match. No, it was just particularly bizarre the way things went. You'll see what I mean. Now, I have to watch it on this map when driving the Panzer III because it's not particularly well known normally for its ability to cross bodies of water. It's not really a very big tank, and it doesn't have a super high clearance. So there is a distinct danger of drowning, even though the rivers on this map are generally fairly shallow. Well, at least they are now. This map was recently redone to address certain issues with gameplay, and making the rivers more fordable was one of the major changes. As you can see, I almost started to drown there, but I managed to get through the other side this time okay. Now, I'm aware of the player tank to my left, but I get distracted by this little Russian NPC tank cruising by behind me, and I decide, well, I'll just pick him off real quick. Well, that was my plan, and I realized he's submerging in the river. Not slowing down at all. In fact, he's on fire while underwater. I was so amazed at what I just saw. I left myself completely open to getting shot by this T-50. I'm sorry, I got distracted. What can I say? So I'll jump in the Stuka now instead. I had just not expected to see Russian submarines in game yet. So I'm going to try and put that little reenactment of Hunt for Red October out of my head and pay attention to the air battle now. There's a TB3 ahead of me. I'd love to shoot down that big, ungainly bird, but he's probably beyond my capabilities to take down with these little 7.92mm machine guns that I have on this. So after looking at him longingly, I'm going to concentrate on what's going on the ground. I'm getting pretty worried about this enemy fighter, and I keep my speed up too high and end up ripping my landing gear right off the plane. It happens in a Stuka. So this is going to be a one-way trip regardless. So I have to make this bomb take out something of high value, if at all possible. And that Zis-30 tank destroyer, well, that seems to fit the bill. And I somehow survive hitting that tree. Well, now that my landing gear is gone, I'm a little faster and more agile. Perhaps I can climb back up there and do some damage to that thing, but that's not happening. So while I ponder my next move, whether to go after anti-aircraft batteries or try and find another tank destroyer that I might be able to take out with my machine guns, I start scanning the battlefield, but I also start drawing a lot of hostile fire, particularly from over to my right. Well, did it. I'm damaged, and I'm going down. I try to bring my guns to bear, but it's just not going to happen. Still, I was able to take out a high-value target before I hit the dirt. So, back in the Panzer III. I'm thinking maybe I can cut around behind the enemy forces pushing the cap. Get behind them. Get in some good shots from behind. So I'm going to cut over this bridge. And apparently hit a landmine. Because something kicks my rear end up in the air and knocks me halfway off the bridge. I'm lucky I didn't end up upside down and underwater. Water seems to be a reoccurring theme in this particular fight. Anyway, I get going again. I continue on my way. Blackguard. I'm pretty sure that's the guy that shot me down. Well, we can't leave him go unopposed over there. Although I've got a lot of heavy fire coming in from the right. I'm going to try and make it over this ridge and recover these rocks and deal with him. And he sets me on fire with the first shot. So, boy, his tank is just nasty looking. But we're going to deal with him now. Either I'm going to shoot him or Archie's going to kill him. Or us. Well, now that he's down, maybe I can deal with those guys over that were taking pot shots at me as I closed on this position. Whoop. Or maybe I better just get back behind the rock. Well, they really can't get a good shot at me, but by the same token, I really can't get a good shot at them either. Still, that doesn't mean that I'm completely without options.
Keep it up and victory will be ours. Enemy forces have captured a zone.
Well, if they're going to move across directly in front of me, I'm going to try and place some artillery directly in their path and see what I can do to make them pay for that. Okay, now I'm clear, but I really need to get over to our cap, which is behind me. So I decided to take a chance and try and use my momentum to cut across this stream. Apparently I got caught in the current there as I got moved sideways, but I don't make it. But I don't die right away either. I'm slowly rolling back into the deeper water, but I'm not dead yet. Great. Now I'm a U-boat. The whole water submarine thing, that's really carrying through strongly this match. So while I'm submerged, I'm going to look for another target. I can't go anywhere. They're depth charging me apparently. And then I see this Russian tank destroyer who's going to wall roll right in front of my guns. So, okay, here we go. I may be a sub, but I've got a deck gun. Unbelievable. I can't even aim because my sight is underwater. Oh well, this is only going to end one way, but it's just bizarre. So that's your peek into the world of playing the Panzer III and the Stuka in tandem. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe. I'm going to leave it at that, folks. Until I see you again, good hunting.